We've got an exclusive investigation for you tonight. The president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has begun, and you may have seen this in the press, seizing land from his own citizens without compensation because they are the wrong skin color. That is literally the definition of racism. Racism is what our elites say they dislike most. Donald Trump is a racist, they say. But they paid no attention to this at all. In fact, Ramaphosa is one of Barack Obama's favorite leaders in the world. In a speech just a few weeks ago, Obama praised him. He praised the racist government of South Africa and Ramaphosa by name for, quote, inspiring hope throughout the country. Does our current bureaucratic elite agree with that? Apparently they do. We called over to the State Department for comment on South Africa's land seizures which should be getting worldwide attention because they are immoral but are getting basically none. And the State Department replied with what is, honestly, an unbelievable statement. We're going to quote it for you at length. Here it is, quote, "We are aware of these reports and have been following this issue very closely for some time. South Africa is a strong democracy with resilient institutions, including a free press and an independent judiciary. South Africans are grappling with the difficult issue of land reform through an open process, including public hearings, broad-based consultations, and active civil society engagement. President Ramaphosa has pledged that the land reform process will follow the rule of law and its implementation will not adversely affect economic growth, agricultural production, or food security." End quote. State Department did not mention that by following the rule of law, he has changed the country's constitution to make it possible to steal land from people because they are the wrong skin color. In other words, nothing to see here, says Mike Pompeo's State Department. It's totally okay for South Africa to steal property for racist reasons because they are, quote, a strong democracy and held, quote, public hearings. Criminals, take note, find a buddy, start robbing State Department employees on their way to work. By their logic, as long as you outnumber them, they'll be okay with getting robbed because it's democracy. Marian Tupy is from South Africa. He spent a lot of time studying that country and the region. He now works at the Center for Global Liberty and Prosperity at the Cato Institute. We talked to him about this recently. Here's our conversation. I thought the whole point of the new South Africa and the reason the rest of us were excited to see it in 1994 take shape is because it rejected racial discrimination. And yet the government is now embracing it. Or am I missing something?
No. In a free and civilized society, we don't take people's stuff on the basis of the color of their skin. It was wrong when it took place under apartheid. It is wrong now. And it would be a tragedy if South Africa were to repeat the same mistakes it did in the past.
So there are really two levels here. First is the moral level, and you and I are in agreement that it's always wrong to punish people for what they look like. But second is the effect that it will have. We saw something similar to this happen in neighboring Zimbabwe. What happened when land was seized there on the basis of skin color?
18 years ago, the governing party of Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF, was threatened with electoral loss. And in order to shore up its support amongst the electorate, it decided to expropriate the farmers of Zimbabwe. What that led to, aside from horrific violence, was a total economic collapse of the country. Half a century of economic growth was wiped out in Zimbabwe as a result of this particular policy. The country experienced hyperinflation and had to abandon its currency. The country's unemployment rate was roughly 90%. Life expectancy plummeted. Child mortality increased. And, of course, the agricultural production has collapsed and hunger ensued.
So the Western media, particularly the media of the United States, has resolutely ignored this. This didn't just happen today. This has been unfolding over a period of years. The Trump administration has not weighed in on this. How should the U.S. administration respond to this human rights tragedy that we're watching unfold?
Well, the first thing that needs to be made clear is to denounce the policy. The administration needs to make it very clear that it is both immoral, because it targets a specific group of people, and I thought we were beyond that. And secondly, that it would be economically destructive. So we need to make it very clear where we stand. Secondly, South African government needs to be aware that the law, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, under which South Africa trades with the United States requires the President of the United States to expel countries from AGOA that do not respect property rights and due process. So South African government needs to be aware that if it changes the constitution and legalizes what is essentially theft of private property, it will be kicked out of AGOA, and further negative economic consequences will ensue.
Why would former President Barack Obama, just several weeks ago, publicly praise a racist like Cyril Ramaphosa? Why would he do that?
A lot of people hope that Cyril Ramaphosa is playing some sort of a three-dimensional chess, that he's just trying to appease the far left of his political party and the far left in the country. But ultimately, he doesn't really believe in what he explicitly says he believes. Cyril Ramaphosa has said that by expropriating the farmland, the privately owned farmland in South Africa, he's going to create the Garden of Eden in South Africa. He's going to turn South Africa into hell, just like Zimbabwe is a complete catastrophe. And so Barack Obama should pick up the phone, call Cyril Ramaphosa, and tell him that if he wants to continue to enjoy the good press he's been having, he needs to reverse policy that he is set on and behave in accordance with normal rules that define and characterize free countries.
Yeah, I wish he'd said that in public when he had the chance, but of course he didn't, being a coward. Marion, thank you very much for your deep knowledge on this subject. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.